Mind control made easy. After all, it's not very easy. It can be made a little more easy if such and such rules or discipline is followed. That is what our great spiritual leaders and teachers tell us. And the book that is most useful in this regard is the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Last time we had started going through the 8 steps of yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. Out of that, the first one called Yama had been completed. Now we will take up the second discipline called Niyama. जन्म हेतून काम्य धर्मान निवर्त्य मोक्ष हेतु निष्कामी धर्मे नियमयन्ति प्रेरयन्ति इति नियमाः. So these are the 5 disciplines which will inspire us to take up that spiritual path which will ultimately help us to overcome the various obstacles and ultimately reach the final goal of life. Which are those 5 steps or 5 parts of this step called Niyama? Shaucha, Santosha, Tapas, Svadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhanani, Niyamaha. So the first is called Shaucha, cleanliness or purity. Santosha, contentment. Tapas, austerity. Swadhyaya, study of the Vedas or repetition of the mantras. And finally, Ishvara Pranidhana, devotion to God. So each one of these items is now taken up for more detailed treatment. So what is Shaucha? Literally it means cleanliness. Mrujjalabhyam bahyamala nivrittihi maitriyadi bhavanaya antar asuyadi mala nivrittihi. Sadashiva Brahmendra, one of the greatest yogis who lived in the 19th century, belonging to Tamil Nadu in a place called Karur. His samadhi is still there. He has given this definition. There are 2 aspects for this Shaucha, cleanliness or purity. One is external, the other is internal. External purity is taking bath and keeping the body clean and pure, wearing clean and pure clothes, and also selecting a clean place for practicing spiritual discipline. As far as the internal purity is concerned, he says, conquering the 6 passions, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, and cultivating an attitude of friendship towards everybody, this is conducive to internal purity. One thing we have to note here, external cleanliness is conducive to internal cleanliness. At least in the beginning of our spiritual life, we have to observe it very, very strictly. That is why the Dharma Shastras and the Smritis say, those who want to practice Sandhya Vandana, Gayatri Japa or Dhyana, they should first take bath, wear clean clothes and sit in a clean place. External cleanliness as also physical cleanliness is conducive to greater concentration of mind. Of course, once a person gains great concentration of mind, when it becomes a habit or a second nature, he need not observe the external rules of purity. In the case of Avadhutas, for instance, they never cared for it. The body may be dirty, the external circumstances may be very unclean, but they were able to raise their mind to God in no time, as we find in the case of Sri Ramakrishna, Totapuri and others. But it's a fact that external cleanliness is conducive to internal cleanliness or purity of mind. That is why when we are given initiation and instructions for meditation, we are specifically asked to take bath, keep a separate set of clothes for practicing meditation, and a clean place for practicing meditation, and an asana or seat, and so on. Next is Santosha. Generally in Kannada, we interpret the word Santosha as happiness. But literally in Sanskrit, it means contentment. Yathalabha paritushtihi. A man works for his living, he has some necessities of life, he wants them, he works for them, he gets them. But he is contented with what little he gets, he is not interested in getting more. So the greed should not be there, one should have contentment with whatever one gets. Sannihita sadhanat adhikasya anupaditsa. The famous Vyasa Bhashya on the Patanjali Sutras says, we have certain means available to us on hand. We take recourse to them and get what we need, what we want. But we should not desire for more. In other words, simple living and high thinking, that should be the ideal for a yogi. The Lord also says in the Gita, Yadrichha labha santushto dvandvatito vimatsaraha samasiddhav siddhaucha kritvapi na nibadhyate. Even though he is performing action, karma, he is not bound by them, bound by his actions. Karma bandhana will not be there if he practices contentment and just is satisfied with whatever he gets. Actually, what makes us unhappy very often in life is not lack of things outside, but it is the lack of acceptance of the situation. In fact, it is greed that spoils everything in life. Swami Vivekananda says in one place, in the East, he meant actually India, people try to live with as little as possible, go on reducing the wants to the absolute minimum. See, can I not live without this? Can I not live without that? So they come to a particular point, drawing the line, making it absolutely minimum. But he says, compared to this, the West went in the other way. They went on increasing the needs and necessities of life, and it became a great burden. So, what really gives us peace of mind is contentment. That is the real wealth for which we should strive, which we should want to have in our life. Then comes the third item, tapas. Literally, the word tap means that which produces heat, which burns, which makes it inconvenient for us at that moment. Dvandva sahanam, dvandvascha, jighatsa pipase, shitoshne, sthana asane, kashta mauna akara maunecha. As I told you earlier, without the help of the standard bhashya or commentary, it is very difficult to understand these works in the form of sutras. For the sutras of Patanjali, the most ancient and most standard commentary is known as Vyasa Bhashya. Who that Vyasa is, we do not know. So he says, tapas means dvandva sahana, putting up with the pairs of opposites, hunger and thirst, for instance, in hot and cold weather, and then whether we are forced to sit or forced to walk. None of these things should have any reaction or action on the mind. We must be able to put up with that and see that they do not upset our mind. The purpose of tapas is you put up with these difficulties, you bear them, and you will not allow them to upset your mind. Hunger is there, thirst is there, the weather may be cold or hot, naturally it upsets us. But slowly, by repeated practice, if you are able to bear them, withstand them, then we can find that the mind continues to remain at peace. Upavasa parakadi krichra chandrayanadi bhihi sharira shoshanam prahuhu tapasaha tapa uttamam. This is another definition for tapas, fasting for instance. And then the vratas called Chandrayana, Krichra and so on. In Chandrayana Vrata, food is increased and decreased according to the phases of the moon. On Amavasya day you fast. Then Purnima day full meal. So from Amavasya to Purnima you go on gradually increasing the food. From Purnima to Amavasya you go on gradually decreasing the food. So that is how these Krichra and Chandrayana are observed according to the Dharma Shastras. Sharira Shoshanam Prahuhu Tapasaha Tapa Uttamam. Austerity of the body. But a far better definition of tapas is got in the Bhagavad Gita. Deva Dvija Guru Prajna Pujanam Shaucham Arjavam Brahmacharyam Ahimsa Cha Shariram Tapa Uchyate. So the Lord has divided tapas into three groups. Tapas of the body, tapas of speech and tapas of mind. Worshipping or serving God, Brahmanas, then the Gurus, spiritual teachers and others, the wise people, and keeping the body and the surroundings clean, then Brahmacharya, controlling the sexual instinct, and Ahimsa, not harming others. All these come under Sharira Tapa, tapas, austerity of the body. Then what about the austerity of speech? Anudvegakaram vakyam satyam priyahitam chayat swadhyaya abhyasanam chaiva vangmayam tapa uchyate. Speaking in such a way that it will not harm others. It will not produce tension and unhappiness in the minds of other people. And that speech, sweet speech, should be truthful. Because I want to speak very sweetly, it doesn't mean I can speak anything I like. It must be rooted in truth. It must be satya, it must be priya and hita. It must be pleasant to hear, and it must bring about the good of the person who hears it, who listens to it. Similarly, practicing the chanting of the Vedas learnt in the house of the Guru. Swadhyaya abhyasanam chaiva. All this belongs to the second group, tapas of speech, or the Vag Indriya, the organ of speech. Then what about the mind? Manah Prasadaha Saumyatvam Maunam Atma Vinigraha Bhava Samshuddhihi Iti Etat Tapo Manasam Uchyate. Manah Prasadaha, keeping the mind at peace. Saumyatva, you have a pleasant appearance outside, the mind also should feel that pleasantness inside. And then mauna. Mauna doesn't mean observing silence completely. As Ramanuja puts it, mauna is vak pravritti niyamanam. The tendency to speak should be controlled. When it is necessary to speak, we speak. When it is not necessary to speak, we should control. So just speaking as much as is necessary according to the circumstances. This we find as a great quality in Hanuman described by Sri Ramchandra himself. So that is real mauna, observing control of speech. When that comes, it reflects upon the mind also. Atma vinigraha, controlling the passions and prejudices of the mind. And bhava samshuddhihi, purity of emotions. Suppose the mind is full of raga, dvesha, kama, krodha and so on, that mind gets agitated. If that mind is controlled, bhava samshuddhi is there, purity of emotions is there, that is the tapas of the mind. It's not very easy, it's difficult no doubt, but it is not impossible also. Unless and until we try, we will not be able to succeed. Even 1,000 miles journey starts with the first step, they say. So once we are convinced about the need for tapas of the body, of speech and of the mind, we should start doing it. Dale Carnegie has written a book, The Art of Public Speaking. So the very first sentence is, if you want to become a good speaker, start speaking, he says. So that is how we learn. Similarly, try to control speech, control the body, control the mind. So that is about tapas. Then comes swadhyaya. It's a technical word. Swadhyaya and pravachana are compulsory duties for every Brahmana who has undergone the training at the Gurukula. That is what the Upanishad says, Taittiriya Upanishad. Swadhyaya pravachanabhyam na pramaditavyam. Swadhyaya is studying the Vedas, understanding them. Then what you have studied, what you have understood, that knowledge has to be given to others, distributed to others. Knowledge is the only thing which will not get exhausted when it is given to others. On the other hand, it goes on increasing. So, Swadhyaya is studying of the Vedas and also teaching it to others. Swadhyayo adhyetavyaha. But as far as yoga is concerned, people like Sadashiva Brahmendra, who are great yogis, they have given different definitions for this word. Swadhyayo Gayatri Prabhritinam Mantranam Adhyayanam. There are great Vedic mantras like Gayatri. And repeating the Gayatri and meditating upon the deity indicated by Gayatri, that is Swadhyaya. So where the Vagendriya and the mind both are employed. And Vyasa in his famous Vyasa Bhashya puts it in different way. Moksha Shastranam Adhyayanam Pranava Japova. So studying those spiritual sciences which help us to attain moksha, that is also Swadhyaya. In fact, it is used more commonly in this sense. Pranava Japova, or the repetition of the word, the mantra Omkara. Actually, our gurus used to say, and even now that the tradition in our organization, every day we have to spend some time in the study of the Shastras. Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, for instance. Apart from that, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Even great Swamijis like our Madhavanji and others, every day in the night, before going to bed, they would read the Gospel 1 or 2 pages, reflect upon that, then repeat the name of the Lord, maybe 5 malas, 10 malas, then go to bed. So, if we go through the Gospel and also repeat the name of the Lord we have received, which we have received from in Mantra Diksha, that will keep the mind in a clean and pure condition, and we will spend the night also in a restful manner. So Swadhyaya is studying of the Vedas, Swadhyaya is repetition of mantras like Gayatri or the mantra given by the Guru, or studying the scriptures which help us to attain moksha or liberation. Then comes Ishvara Pranidhana. Abhihitanam anabhihitanam cha sarvasam kriyanam parameshvare phala anapekshitaya samarpanam. Literally, Ishvara Pranidhana means devotion to the Lord. But how to show the devotion? Suppose there is a person, he is a man of action. He is actually, from morning till night, he has to work as per the dictates of the Shastras, depending upon his varna and ashrama. But whatever work we do, if we are able to offer the fruits and the results of that work to the Lord, it becomes Ishvara Pranidhana. Abhihitanam anabhihitanam cha sarvasam kriyanam parameshvare phala anapekshitaya samarpanam. Sometimes we plan and do things. Sometimes we just do things without planning, whether we like it or not. But whatever action has been done by us, ultimately don't desire for its fruits and results, offer it to the Lord, that is Ishvara Pranidhana. So there is a mantra which is supposed to be repeated at the end of the karmas. Kamato akamato vapi yat karomi shubhashubham tat sarvam tvayi vinyasya tvat prayuktaha karomyaham. This is at the beginning of the day, before beginning the performance of one's duties or discharging one's responsibilities. Whatever I do, whether I do them with desire or unwillingly, willingly or unwillingly, whether it is a good action or a bad action, I will keep or offer all those actions at your feet. You should inspire me to go in the right direction. So in the beginning itself, if you pray and then start doing things, the chances of our going wrong are practically nil, or at least minimized. Stuti smarana pujabhir vangmanah kaya karmabhihi sunischala shive bhaktihi yetat Ishvara pujanam. How to worship the Lord Shiva? By praising Him, by remembering Him, by performing puja, through the speech, through the body, through the mind, and doing them in such a way that our devotion to the Lord increases. That is called Ishvara Pranidhana according to another definition. There is another wonderful work, which is also an ancient work, called Yoga Yajnavalkya. It has dealt with the subject of yoga in fairly great detail. There, Yama and Niyama, instead of 5 each, Yajnavalkya has given 10 items in each of them. For instance, under Niyamas, Tapas, Santosha, Astikyam, Danam, Ishvara, Pujanam, Siddhanta, Shravanam, Chaiva, Khrihi, Matishcha, Japo, Vratam, Ete tu Niyamaha Proktaha. So here he has added Astikya, faith in the Lord, Dana, giving gifts to deserving people, and Hri, modesty, Mati or wisdom, and Vrata, performing certain ritualistic actions. So these are also added under Yama. Well, ultimately the idea is somehow or the other bring the mind under control so that it will help you to concentrate upon the Atman or God. Sometimes a question may be raised by the sadhakas. All these things are very difficult. Even the 8-step yoga, the yoga of 8 limbs, Ashtanga yoga, is very difficult to practice for ordinary sadhakas. Is there no shortcut? All of us are interested in shortcuts. And Patanjali has given a shortcut. He has called it as Kriya Yoga. Tapas, Swadhyaya and Ishvara Pranidhana. These 3 are more than enough. Tapas, austerity of body, speech and mind. Swadhyaya, studying the scriptures and then repetition of the divine mantra and devotion to the Lord. He even goes to the extent of telling that the yogi can attain samadhi even by Ishvara Pranidhana. Just by devotion to the Lord, one can get even samadhi, what to speak of other things. After giving these 10 disciplines, Patanjali gives us in detail the results of observing these disciplines. Of course, the standard time or period or duration is 12 years for each of these disciplines. Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, practicing ahimsa in thought, word and deed for 12 years, speaking the truth for 12 years and so on. If that is done, what are the extraordinary results, psychic powers that the yogi gets? Ahimsa pratisthayam tat sannidhau vairatyagaha. Suppose a person observes ahimsa in thought, word and deed continuously for 12 years, then he will produce such a wonderful atmosphere of peace and harmony around him that even animals which are inimical to each other by nature become docile, they live in peace. Tat sannidhau vairatyagaha. In fact, we find this in the lives of many great saints. And people who have seen Ramana Maharshi say that in his ashrama this used to happen. Once Ramana Maharshi was coming down the hill, suddenly he saw a cobra, he just stood still. And there is practically no other path, and the cobra passed over his feet and then went away without harming him. While the another person who was with him stood at a distance because he was afraid. Then he asked Ramana Maharshi, were you not afraid? How was it? How did you feel? He told him, oh, it was very cool and nice. When the snake passed over the feet, it was very cool and nice. So, ahimsa pratishtha leads to vairatyaga. In other words, suppose we are full of the thoughts of love, universal love and peace, then people around us who come to us, they also get a little of that. I remember an incident in Mysore. I was in the Ramakrishna Institute of Moral and Spiritual Education. I was the head of that for 11 years. In the very first batch, there were about 75 B.Ed students studying for the B.Ed degree. And one of them, who became the Students' Union president, was supposed to be a very, very troublesome fellow. So from the beginning of the academic year, more than half of our energy was spent in controlling that fellow. Anyhow, we managed it. On the last day, examination is over. All these boys are packing up to go home finally. And this boy came and told me, I want to have a personal interview with you. I told him, all right, come. Then he started unfolding his thoughts and feelings. He said, when I got down at Mysore, I wanted to go to Tumkur because I wanted to join the B.Ed degree college there, which was already there much earlier than ours. Somebody told me that Ramakrishna Mission has started a B.Ed degree college, very fine college, why don't you go and join there? I came and saw, I was very much impressed and I joined. And my record is, in the schools and colleges wherever I have studied, I have been a very troublesome fellow. Especially in the college, I would somehow manage to become the Students' Union secretary and create a hell for the management and the staff. Then he said, I do not know what has happened to me. Every day, sitting in the prayer hall for half an hour, once in the morning, once in the evening, it had a very sobering effect upon my mind. There is something special in your prayer hall, he said. And all these tendencies would just subside completely. And towards the last days, it had a tremendous effect upon his mind. With folded hands, he told me, I want to get peace of mind. Please teach me how to meditate upon God. I felt very, very happy because there was a genuine conversion from that end to this end. That is because of the atmosphere there. 70 people, 100 people sitting together quietly in prayer, in meditation twice a day, and the whole atmosphere of the campus is tuned to this. Automatically it will have its effect on the mind. So, that is what is happening here. Ahimsayam pratisthayam tat sanidhau vairatyagaha. Satya pratisthayam kriyaphala ashrayatvam. Now, if a person is well established in truth, that is, he speaks the truth, thinks the truth, and acts according to truth for 12 years, what happens? Then he becomes Kriya Phala Ashraya. Well, Kriya means an action. It results in a particular phala. Suppose I want to get something, I have been asked to do a particular discipline or a particular way to fulfill that desire. So I do this karma and get that phala. That is in the normal course. But in the case of a man who has observed truth for 12 years, if he speaks something, automatically the result will be there without undergoing the intervening karma. Vang matprena data. That is how the commentator says. Suppose somebody comes and tells this great yogi, I want such and such a thing, I am unable to get it, all right, go, you will get it. So just by one word, uttered by the yogi, any person will get what he wants without doing the particular karma or making any effort needed for that. So that is the power of speech. Speech or truth, truthful speech. In fact, all the great rishis who were giving boons to the people who came to him, they had practiced this, that is why they were able to succeed. In fact, when Narendra wanted the troubles in his family to end, ultimately Sri Ramakrishna said, all right. So one word from Sri Ramakrishna practically solved the problem of his family. Then comes asteya, not stealing, not taking anything that does not lawfully belong to one. Asteya pratisthayam sarvaratna upasthanam. A person is practicing this very strictly. I don't want to touch anything that does not rightfully belong to me. Not stealing. That's the crudest definition, not stealing. But in a higher sense, it means not taking anything, not accepting anything which does not belong to him according to dharma. If he practices that for 12 years, sarva ratna upasthanam, all the wealth without asking will come and fall at his feet. So that is the power of attraction of wealth, because he is not interested in wealth. We see that in the lives of many great people, whatever they have wanted in their life, really needed by them, at the right time, it has been somehow given to them by the Lord. I think once Vijayadasa was travelling and the whole group was in a forest area, and that was supposed to be Yugadi, but they were in the forest, nothing to eat. And suddenly it happened that some wealthy party of traders came there. They had so many things with them, and all the devotees who had gathered there were fed nicely by these traders. So this is how things happen. Sarvaratna upasthanam. Then brahmacharya pratisthayam viryalabhaha, spiritual strength will come by observing brahmacharya. And the real power is understanding the truths given by the scriptures, and if that person gives the teaching to somebody, it will become effective in his life. Tadyuktena yogina kritaha shishyeshu upadeshaha sadhyaha phalati iti bhavaha. But there are great gurus like this. If disciples approach them and they teach them, and the moment they teach, immediately the disciples are able to understand the truth. They can realize the power of that teaching. That is possible only when the Guru is extraordinarily great, and that power comes from brahmacharya. Aparigraha sthairye janma katham ta sambodha. This is a very interesting statement. Aparigraha, not accepting gifts given by others, not more than what one really need. Yes, you are permitted to accept gifts given by others, provided it is within the orbit of dharma, not more than that. Suppose a person follows that. Sri Ramakrishna's father followed it very, very strictly. Even today there are some orthodox brahmanas who lead a very, very austere and simple life. Though their number is decreasing, there are people even now of that type. I remember an incident in the life of Saram Vishweshwaraya. He had gone to the United States. He was urgently in need of a shirt, I think. When the cloth was purchased, It was given to the tailor, and the tailor had also told him how much he would charge and when he would give. So he gave it on right time, which is a very rare quality among our tailors here. If they say today or tomorrow, that may be next year. Anyhow. Then he took delivery of the shirt, gave him the money, but he gave him $2 more than what he had asked for. The tailor just took it without counting it. And later on, around 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the night, suddenly that gentleman came, knocked at the door, and Visheswarai opened. He returned the $2. Sir, you have given $2 extra, probably by mistake. I don't want it. No, I didn't give it by mistake. She just like tips. I was so pleased with your work, so I gave it of my own accord. No, sir, I cannot touch it. I have not earned it. It's an incident mentioned in his life. So that is the type of honesty they have practiced. Then comes Shauchat Swanga Jugupsa Paraihi Asamsargaha. By practicing Shaucha, cleanliness, our attachment for the body slowly disappears. We are very much attached to the body. But we find that you go on cleaning it any number of times, again it becomes dirty. So what is the use? So don't be attached to this body, but use it as much as is necessary for the sadhana. Sattva Shuddhi, Saumanasya, Aikagriya, Indriya Jaya, Atma Darshana, Yogyatvanisha. So this is the result of Antashaucha. When you practice internal purity, your mind will become so pure, it becomes absolutely calm, concentration will increase, control of the sense organs also will come, and ultimately you become fit for Atma Darshana. Santoshad Anuttama Sukhalabhaha. If you practice contentment, then you will get great joy and peace. Contentment is a quality of the mind. We practice it. No greed. I am content with what little the Lord gives. Go on adjusting in such a way that the mind is not upset. Then as a result, Anuttama Sukhalabhaha, you get such a happiness which is incomparable. That means the mind is always at peace and joy. Kayendriya Shuddhihi Ashuddhi Kshayat Tapasaha. When tapas is practiced, the body, the sense organs and the mind, all these things become pure in course of time. Swadhyayat Ishtadevata Samprayogaha Samadhi Siddhihi Ishvara Pranidhanat. Swadhyaya is mantra japa. Now by mantra japa, one is able to have a vision of the Ishtadevata. Ishtadevata Samprayogaha. Of course, this is a very concept with which we are very familiar. By repetition of the divine name constantly and continuously, gradually in course of time, we are able to see our Ishtadevata in our heart. And if that develops into Samadhi, absolute concentration, perfect concentration, then Ishvara Pranidhanat, that results in Mukti, Atma Jnana, and that can come by devotion to the Lord. So, in order to get Samadhi, you need not follow the tortuous process of the 8 steps. Just by Ishvara Pranidhana, devotion to the Lord, you can get Samadhi also. In fact, some of the disciples once asked Brahmanandaji about the rousing of the Kundalini. The Yoga Shastra says that there is Kundalini power locked at the root of the spinal column, and they say that such and such yogic practices have to be done to rouse it and so on and so forth. Is it really possible for people like us? Then Brahmanji says, even the Kundalini can be roused and Samadhi can be got by Nama Japa. By repetition of the divine name, with faith, with love, with concentration, gradually in course of time, the mind becomes so pure, automatically the Kundalini power is roused, and we will have a vision of the Supreme Lord in our minds and hearts. Now there are obstacles to Yama and Niyama. How to overcome them? Vitarka badhane pratipaksha bhavanam. Now we want to practice ahimsa, but the thoughts of himsa arise in the mind. What shall I do? He says, put the opposite thought. Whenever a bad thought arises in the mind, try to put a good thought which is the opposite of that. Of course, this is one method. An easier method is just to remember the mantra given by the Guru, repeat the divine name, pray to the Lord. Automatically these problems will slowly disappear. Then comes asana. Now asana is not the seat, it is the posture that is meant here. But at the same time, the commentators and others, they also point out the seat upon which we sit for meditation, that is also important, and usually Kushasana is recommended. So we have Kushasana, over that spread a skin, the skin of antelope and swan, over that a piece of cloth. That is supposed to be the best asana for meditation. But we can also use any other asana which is comfortable to sit. Once we sit, we should be able to forget it. If you go on examining the fitness of the asana itself, then all the time is wasted over that. So asana is that posture in which one can sit for a long time comfortably. Sthira Sukham Asanam. So once you are able to sit comfortably in that posture, gradually you can increase the duration. In the beginning it may be 15 minutes, then half an hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour. We have seen Tyagishananji giving discourses on Sundays. So he was not using table or chair. On a short platform, he would sit in the Padmasana posture like this, keep the eyes closed. If he starts at 9 o'clock, 11, 11:30, 12 o'clock, till then the discourse will go on. There used to be hardly 20 to 30 people, but all of them would be taking notes because such valuable things used to come out of him. And he was an encyclopedia of spiritual knowledge and wisdom. And in such a steady posture, in meditation posture, sitting for full 3 hours. And every day he used to sit for prayer in the evening. 6:45 when the Aarti starts, he would come and sit. Now where we have that almirah in which our harmonium and other things are kept, that was the place where he used to sit in the old veranda. So 6:45 he would sit, open his eyes only at 8:30 at the time of night food. He would take only a glass of water a glass of milk in the night. So that was the